So rude, I'm cutting the circle of light off.
We are in a linear time space.
Yeah. Circle of light, we are still got to look at the clock.
They'll be back. I was keeping an eye on it too.
Well, that was interesting. So maybe once we process all of the naked and afraid and the violence and the war, we can start coming out with reality shows of remote viewing and
I mean, I think
reality
there's more
shows
of
like the potentialities of human beings.
I mean, I love a serial killer show myself, so it.
I know. Well,
makes
that's
a lot of sense.
That's the interesting thing that I feel like that they brought up, though. It's like we are consuming a lot of
storylines.
Negative storylines. Like if you think about like people like love a serial killer show, women are always watching like the first 48. Like how does ingesting that negative energy not create more of the same?
Welcome to Spread Your Third Eye podcast. I am your host, Mia Wrights, and we are here with our beautiful guest, Georgia Jean.
Hello.
Coming in with a circle of light today.
Coming in hot.
And her wonderful friend, an Emmy Award-winning editor that lives here in Hollywood and was here for Georgia Jean's very special event.
Yep, we were roommates. At the time when I had my big spiritual event, she wasn't actually there because I was down in San Diego with this other girl, but she was there right on the actual weekend when the whole blew up happened. But she was there before and then during, kind of working it all out and trying to figure out what the heck was going on. Yep. And then afterwards, we lived together till I left till 2000. That happened in 2004, and then I left, I think, LA at the end of 2007.
Probably,
yeah. So she was there. She's part of the genesis. She's part of the little
the whole story. She got to see you practicing and all the things of getting the channel like clear and right,
and kind of just like trying to.
I got all the free homework at the beginning. I got all the practice sessions.
The practice sessions, we did a lot of the practice sessions and all that kind of like. Trying to figure out if it was really happening and stuff like that. Like we were all just we had another roommate, Elkie, who was very psychic. I'd always say she was a lot more naturally what people would say is traditionally psychic than me.
Yeah.
And then she was getting a lot of like the dead people.
Yeah, I always say she's like the I see dead people variety.
She was
like
definitely.
Did that happen to her during that event when the circle of light came in? Or?
No, because it was separate events. So I had this other friend who was living in San Diego who I would go and visit, and we were the ones communicating through the Pathfinder, the shamanistic talking board, and that's where we were getting like this spirit dictation. My friend could sit at it and it would just spell out pages and pages of the spirit dictation. So she came up one weekend and we were all like sitting around writing out the
dining room table.
The dining room table.
Notebook.
There was Lisa.
You were the writer. You were the one journaling?
I think we all were. No, we were all taking notes.
We'd all take notes.
Like ask questions and then write it down. And,
yeah.
Because it was also... Were there words on the board or just letters? Like it's very.
There I think there might have been some words, but remember she could just sit there and it would just spell it out so
super
quickly.
Fast,
This was the way our friend just kind of connected through this board, and it would zip around and just be like, we are here and we're here to help the planet, and But we were still very much, as we joked about, being like, is the hot English bartender ever going to ask me out? I'm not carrying it all about.
Using it for real good, important stuff. Really important questions.
Am I going to get a sitcom? And we had literally no idea about, because this is now 20 years ago. It's actually 20 years ago. Can you believe
weird.
it?
No, I
when you do the math.
Right?
This was the year 20 years ago. And
Wow, that was 20 years ago this year.
This year.
Yeah.
It was 20 years ago this year, yeah. And it was the week before the 4th of July that was the event, because I'll always be able to remember that because of the 4th of July. And I had also had to leave the Comedy Store the week before the event because that was all part of this sort of sequence to get me out of that very intense environment and be able to be energetically opened up like that. So yeah, that was the sequence. It's like, because we were in acting class together, so she knew all the like terrible stuff I was going through at the Comedy Store and stuff like that, and the tears and the, my God, is this happening to me kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then,
She's the OG friend.
she's the OG friend, very much. And I love Malinda so much because she was people just come into your life, and we had just a very natural affinity. And even that we ended up living together because I had a couple of tricky roommate situations, and it was time to find a new roommate. This one guy who was I can't actually remember who was before, but anyway, a room was opening up, and I think it either popped into my head because we'd been in acting class. I was like, man, Malinda would be such a good roommate. And then you were like,
I happened to be looking at the time.
Yeah.
Literally was going to take a room with somebody else who I had worked with at like Barnes and Noble or something.
Right.
And then I had been, I think, to your house for like a party.
Yeah.
Sometime during the year, like maybe it was New Year's or something like that, or a birthday party. And I was like, man, this apartment's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, very, because it was one of those Art Deco,
Yeah, it
like
was a
from
cool
the
place.
20s, very
wow.
LA kind of California
bungalow,
building.
yeah.
And then, you had just been like, hey, do you want to like move in? And I was like, yeah. Literally was about to tell somebody I would to move in with them. And luckily I didn't, because the guy, the landlord who owned that building where my other friend was staying, like foreclosed on it like 2 months later, and she had to leave. So so like Georgia,
And you guys lived the longest together, right? That was your longest roommate.
She was my longest roommate in LA. She was my longest
I think like
roommate.
5 years. I can't remember what year I moved in, but yeah.
It was pretty early. Well, because the event was 2004. And then I think we'd been living together at least a year before that stuff
like 2003
started
would be
happening.
right.
2003, yeah. And then so we lived together for, it was a considerable amount of time, and we went through a lot together. But I feel like, especially going through something as wild as that spiritual event, and the role that, the whole cycle of healing that I think we were probably, because we were going to the goddess circle as well.
Yeah.
Then I got kicked out of the Savannah Soul Garden. I was kicked out of that. The event. We won't go into that story, but anyway, competition. I was sent out of the goddess circle, but we were working on stuff then because we were both going through what it was like to be in entertainment. We were trying to, clear things, and we were in this kind of like energy group circle, and we'd learn about law of attraction stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that was like the Secret had also just came out. Like that was the big thing that was starting to people were talking about like manifesting and all of that was like the Secret. Have you seen The Secret? That's what everyone was kind of. So
we're all
that's
about that.
The point of whatever the spiritual evolution or
the
those ideas coming into the consciousness of the zeitgeist
collective, because
so
I mean that was all very a big. When I first moved to LA, like Crossing Over was on with John Edward, and that was a real trailblazing show because he was like this New Yorker guy who was a medium, and he kind of made the kind of concept of mediumship a lot more accessible to people because he wasn't like, have a witchy poo lady, there's a dead person in the house, there were sort of these seeding things that were happening to kind of open up our awareness about how life is created energetically, and it isn't just what we see. And then, but even still, I think we were so unaware of this time that has been coming now, which is like this sort of huge planetary shift, and why there's sort of so much turbulence and stuff like that, because we were, we were at that stage more, how can we use this information about energy to just like make our lives better?
Right. Yeah. As like a tool, as a tool.
And to heal and to be, happier people. It was more of a personal awakening to consciousness and spirituality, as many people do come to consciousness and spirituality because they have stuff going on and they're just trying to personally make it better. But as our work has evolved, it's really been about that personal work is really very
Connected
archetypal
to
the
planet.
planet and to everybody who's here and trying to elevate.
You have to start somewhere.
You got to start
like
somewhere.
baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps. And you really can't do that big planetary healing until you've done quite a bit of foundational work on yourself, so you can even hold that energy. So Malinda was like, part of, I feel like, a very stabilizing part of my life at that time, like a soul sister in that true sense, that she was there for that period of life. And and she's always been very precious to me for these reasons. Totally.
So why don't we talk about what we want to talk to the circle about, as in the entertainment industry, since you're an Emmy Award-winning editor, and some of the things that you're interested in.
I think what more like excuse me, we're going through a time of kind of like change within the entertainment business about how people are, where they're getting their entertainment. People aren't going to the movies so much. Like people are streaming or YouTube or TikTok. Like everything is changing. There's a bit of a changing landscape and upheaval. Like one terrarium of upheaval, I guess, in the one little bubble.
Many.
But how is, and I think people are really looking in my business and with what I do and with all of this, like, where do we, continue to try and be down this path? How are things changing, or how do we serve? I think a lot of people come into the entertainment industry trying to, or me personally, like, you want to tell stories because they affect people. You can make people feel, you can make people think, change their lives, or see themselves in another character that may help them in some way. And I think, that's what storytelling has always been about. But it feels like that's kind of changing now. And how do we continue to do those things within a changing landscape?
Like, be purposeful. Well, this is good stuff. And we should just fill in. So, because Malinda spoke, you would have spoken to the circle a lot in those early days when I was still like moving around a lot and everything, but really not much for the last, we did a session a few years ago.
2021. It's probably the last time I really chatted with
y'all. So she doesn't really know all the content that's been coming through and the whole sort of this broader perspective that started to come through beyond what was. I always joke that we were like the Abraham Hicks cover band at first, because it was very just like law of attraction, you're a vibrational being, and it was very like just basically channeling stuff that we kind of already knew from other channeled content.
But they were what was available at the time. It was like The Circle or The Secret. Abraham Hicks. Like, those are all like the gateway, or just the few people who were already in that space. Then, so it's like, how do you...
That was also What the Bleep Do We Know was another big thing that came out around that time as well. That was a big movie that came out, which had a woman channeling in it as well. But anyway, that's also... So I'll just bring them in and, we can reconnect with the old circleage. Here we go. Hi, yes, indeed, dear ones. We are here and we are most delighted to make connection with you here on another magnificent day in your earth plane. It is a great delight to connect in this way and to connect with you all who are here gathering with many powerful intentions to uplift planetary consciousness. Some of you may, as these dear ones were when we first sort of came into town, into their lives, may still very much be seeking to hear and find answers to improve a personal experience in their life. And there is really nothing more or less about having that intention. But we have also come through to really be of assistance to this planetary shift right now. And you bring up some very interesting questions about entertainment and what is its purpose? How can you be fruitful in your efforts, both personally in enjoying the experience of having entertainment, but also potentially serving more of this upliftment, so it isn't a sort of exercise in just the creative act. And now, again, there's nothing terribly wrong with the creative act, but entertainment itself is playing a very big role in the planetary shift right now. And you can probably see that because never, and we would actually say, dear ones, controversially, that everything is pretty much entertainment, including what is obviously entertainment, movies, TV shows, but also your news media is more of an entertainment than a delivery system of content that is of pure, let's say, pure consciousness, because there is so much going on, quote unquote, behind the scenes that very little that is transmitted in any form of broadcast is without influence by a great controller. And what we would say is the great controller is the mind itself. So you are all kind of movie projectors creating your own realities here. And it is the desire of the mind to keep everything the same that is creating so much influence on how consciousness is being transmitted. Now, each one of you might point a finger at saying, well, this person is being too influential, or this organization is being too influential, or this group is trying to control the way people think or feel, or whatever it is. But the truth is, it is the mind as a mechanism for creativity that does that. So we share this basic truth with you because what we really want to do is get you into collectively an empowered space to understand how you can really change the landscape and the picture of your reality with these intentions of using the tools and the things that you have that can deliver content to people. So we are big proponents of doing the heart centering for anything that you are creating. Why? Because whenever you start to generate something from the mind, whether it is news, whether it is entertainment, whether it is movies, it's always going to have the mind's programming in it. And the mind's programming is what generates and perpetrates so much of the suffering on your planet. Now, here's what's really interesting about entertainment is because you are also going through a rewriting of the collective experience on the planet, and you're going through this process of harvesting energy from the old storylines that you no longer want to give to the heart to create new storylines collectively. There is so much of the human collective history that has a lot of energy invested in it that you are trying to become conscious of. And this is why you are living in such turbulent times energy-wise and generally. not so that you are all going to go back in time or get set backwards, but so you can gather energy from these old storylines and put it into a new creative output, which is the heart center. And we'll explain the heart center a little bit more. If you've watched some of these podcasts, you'll already know. But when you create reality from the heart, you are naturally bypassing the imprinting and the programming of the mind that has created so many of the problems. Separation, polarity, struggle, the survival consciousness, all of the fear and all of this sort of thing. So in order for you to come back to almost a neutral state of having energy available for creativity, you are all trying to commune with different aspects of human consciousness that's sort of fragmented off. And we want to have a little laugh because we know from your conversations that you are the editor of Naked and
Afraid.
So we'll use this as an example. Why is this show popular? Why do people want to watch this? What is the charge, the point of attraction? Why people want to watch other people be naked and afraid? Of course, you have your suspenseful way you create this, who's going to make it, and all of this speaks to the survival consciousness. But the greater, deeper, energetic reality of this is that once upon a time you were all naked and afraid.
Yeah.
And we have talked about
That's interesting.
the actual zeitgeist of the human creative experience from these moments. As consciousness, when you came into human form, when you were evolving the human form into what it has evolved in today. But really where it came from, consciousness was like, all right, bam, we're going to create this life form. Those original experiments were extremely primal, extremely, as you might say, gnarly. Compared to how you live in civilized society today. And there are many projections that are explored in entertainment that are actually speaking back to this deeply buried memory inside of you all. This is what we call part of the biological belief structure that is in all your DNA coding, that you have an extremely competitive and savage initiating experience, and not even savage in the way you would think MMA is savage these days, in that the drive to live meant there was a lot of destruction of anything that opposed that. Even weaker members of the tribe or brothers, siblings, anything destroyed to survive. This is how the human biology could become strong enough to survive its originating experience. And as a human collective, you're really struggling a lot now with transcending a lot of that old survival programming, which was what helped you become human beings. But now, as a creative playing field, you don't really want to keep playing out these survival stories. Because what do they generate? War, destruction, polarity, opposition, all of these things that you're all trying to reconcile right now in these storylines. So your show, you may be thinking, well, this is a reality show, and many reality shows have actually a deep purpose behind them, which is why there has been a rise in their popularity, because human consciousness is recognizing and trying to reconcile its deep initial psychological programs. And people, when they watch a show, have an opportunity to come into union with an aspect of themselves that is still biologically operating that way. And very often it is the people who feel the least quote unquote savage who may really be drawn to these shows because they're trying to come into oneness with an aspect of their own consciousness that's so highly unconscious because it is a biological program. They wouldn't acknowledge to their conscious self, oh, I am also that.
Right.
In order for you to transcend the level of consciousness that you're at right now, you actually have to gather up all of the energy that's sort of been permeated into a creative experience that comes from this programming and the programming after that and the programming after that. So you're actually already doing an important service right now. Why is the landscape changing of entertainment? Well, as the human collective does this work and says, all right, we have had a way to have a relationship with this very primal aspect of ourselves, naked and afraid. We've watched the show, as particularly the people who may be trying to unify with those themes. Now a show will maybe start to lose some popularity. It's starting to lose some of the energy charge that is bringing it into creation because its purpose has been diffused. The energy is actually integrated. Does that make sense to you? What? Yes. And then new shows come along with a new theme, new material that you are trying to unify with. And this material that you're trying to unify with comes both from the collective history of humanity and also the collective future potentiality of humanity that you're also trying to unify with, which is why you have things, television shows that are more science fiction by nature, because it's speaking more towards future potentialities. Now, you can have a look at history, the history of entertainment, that there may have even been waves of this more idealistic science fiction type of entertainment coming forward that begins to stimulate the human consciousness to go, oh, wow, we can do all these other things. We could teleport. We could move through time and space. We could have telepathy. We could communicate. We could come into oneness with other beings and other energetic creations. If we could do that, do we really still want these war stories? Do we really still want these other sort of more painful experiences that are part of the 3D egoic construct? And so the entertainment is serving as both an activator and awakener, and also an opportunity to harvest energy from the old storylines to put into the new creative experience. So after you get the science fiction, then you get a wave of shows, Naked and Afraid, survivor stories, things like this, that go back to some of that primal programming so you can unify with the energy that's in that consciousness and take it forward. And any energy you may be asking yourselves out there, I wonder what I am here to, my piece of the pie is to help unify with, to help humanity shift forward. It may very much be in the themes of the shows that you're interested in or around. And what we would say to you, dear ones, who are in the entertainment industry, as you are seeking this sense of purpose, first of all, the collective creative experience is what is actually creating the entertainment, and you are the channels for it.
Wow.
So, what, even as much as you may resist some of the things that you are seeing, there is, because of this calling to transcend and move into a new layer of human consciousness, that calling is actually bringing forward these thematic experiences for you to work with and unify, reconcile, and transcend through unification beyond that. So you're all channels in your own way, but you think it's your idea, and it is your idea for broader consciousness, but you are also operating under a momentum of creativity that is directed towards change. Now, if you want to be part, and this may be where some of your question is leading from, if you want to be part of the entertainment industry that is helping to bring in the new potentialities and the new consciousness and the new unified field, what we would call the 5D grid, the heart created reality that really works for everybody, and it is outside the survival programming of limitation that you're all fighting over limited resources and afraid of the loss of resources and all this sort of thing. The heart created reality, because it does not operate under the basic premises of the 3D mind reality, which is separation, survival, the illusion of decay and entropy of the body, the singular egoic identity, limited time-space reality, and most importantly, the lack, limitation, survival consciousness. Outside of the mind, there is not the limitation that you experience in the 3D world. And this is what creates so much of the problems that you have as a human collective, the fight over resources and how they are controlled. So if you want to be part of the new consciousness, which is creating reality beyond that, we would say, don't try and find the ideas in your mind, because you'll probably be part of the generation of content that has helped to help people unify with that. But to go into the heart and surrender and open up and say, as these dear ones do, before every show, they go into their hearts and they say, show me, how can we assist alleviating the suffering of humanity? And what this does is actually opens up natural gateways of new consciousness intelligence that you as a creator can bring in, can become an embodiment of, and then will generate through your creative acts. And that material, that creation, whether it is a book, whether it is a movie, whether it is a TV show, whether it's still a reality show, it could be anything, doesn't really matter, will naturally carry the codes and the frequencies of the reality that you are calling in. Because so much of the distress that you're experiencing right now as a collective is seeing the conflict that your media is creating amongst everybody. And you're all aware that there is a distortion of information and a controlling of the information, and that you're actually really being played against each other as opposed to being given the pathway forward that unifies the collective field. What we want you to understand is that the mind doesn't know how to create that. As a creative enterprise, you have two seats that you can create reality from. The mind, which will always run the old programs that have generated the pain and the suffering of humanity, because that is just its mechanism. We're not even saying it's a terrible thing, because
it was just like the game that we decided to play.
Game. It is the game. That was the game when you came out, the savages, destroying one another to become the humanoids you are. That was the game. That was the mechanism. It's sort of like being mad at a MacBook from 2001. It was just the operating system. So now you have this opportunity, you're all incarnated at this time to discover that you could create a new game. But you have to get out of the program generator that's created all those old storylines you're trying to transcend and generate it from the heart, which does not operate under those premises. Once you surrender and open that gateway, new consciousness can come in. You as human beings have a free will choice about how you create your reality. It's also part of the game. You have a free will choice. You are actually not controlled or governed to even quote unquote obey what we are saying. We are letting you know what your options are. And individually, as soon as you start heart centering, you will innately put yourself into the stream of reality that is being generated by the heart. And it is outside the logic of the mind. Most people right now are saying, how can we fix all this? But you've been trying to do it from your mind. Your minds can only create what it already knows how to create. A MacBook Pro from 2005 can only produce what it can produce in that limitation. It cannot produce anything better. Do you see, dear ones? So you have to go to a new operating system to create something new. So instead of us saying, oh, we'll write a show about this, write a show about that, shift where your creative center is. If you do want to be part of the movement to bring in the new consciousness and the intelligence that will harmonize your reality and move it out of the struggles that you are in right now. So as we share this with you, because we are sure there's many people out there who are creators who want to understand this, what comes forward for you, dear one? How can we refine this?
It's a good question.
Or something else.
Yeah, like I think I'm wrapping my brain around the idea of where your creativity starts, right?
Yes,
the mind versus and I'm a very mind person. So
We all are.
I think that's a hard
the problem was.
that's a
Don't worry, you're
hard
not
hurdle to get through.
It is.
But what about like opportunities now? Because things are shifting.
Well, one thing we'd like to just give to you for that, because this can also help for many ones, and we will love to have your questions as well, because we understand that you are always good at bringing in insights. So if you are still in your mind a lot and it's difficult for you to go into your heart, it's okay. First of all, we don't want anyone to feel like they're having their wrists slapped here about being in their mind. It's because there is so much energy invested in the mind-created matrix that it is natural by original law of attraction. You are attracted to it.
Right.
Because there's so much energy that is invested in the way humanity has been creating reality. It is natural that you want to be in your mind. And we always say this to our dear friends. And the pivot we are trying to give you, dear ones, is when you notice that you are powerfully drawn to a certain storyline and it's bringing you pain, it's bringing you charge, it's bringing you fear, it's bringing you angst, and your mind is very active trying to figure out how to fix it. How do we fix problem A, problem B? How do we make humanity better here, there? It is natural because there's so much energy invested in those storylines from the entire history of humanity that you have not the faintest idea of everything that's gone on in this creative experience. Even your sense of history books has no possible way to gather up how much energy there is generated in this mind creative matrix. But you see the storylines, you're drawn to them, and your first notion is, I want to fix this. And this is what everyone's fighting about, is how to fix it. It's not to fix it here. It is to see it and to gather the energy from it and give it to the heart. Once you start actually or actively gathering energy from the mind-generated matrix, instead of putting more energy into fighting with each other about how it should be, but gathering that energy from the mind-generated matrix and giving it to the heart in an act of surrender, which is a powerful thing, because the intelligence behind the heart knows how to create a new reality beyond all of these problems. Your job is to harvest the energy. And creators, what they're doing is they're creating the shows that people can watch and get upset about, and not to stay upset about, but to harvest the energy from it and give it to the heart. Once you have more energy flowing in the heart, it's a lot easier to keep your focus there. So everybody has a role in this process. If you're still in your mind, you may still be in more of this harvesting mode.
Mm-hmm.
If you've done your piece of harvesting, because everybody's got pieces, themes that mean a lot to them,
Right.
whether it is something that's personal to you, or something that you see in the history books that upsets you, or something that you see on, as we said, you might be really drawn to a certain type of TV show which may be demonstrating the themes that you are here to help to harvest. We say to you, by all means, enjoy your show. But at the end of the show, imagine pulling all of the energy that's in those themes and bring it into your heart and say, heart, create something different with this energy. So it's all powerful. Wherever you are, it's all powerful. But we want to give you these tools so you can help to transcend what is going on right now. Your show is a lot more valuable, as we say, than you really think, because the biological programming that is in the survival mind is one of the biggest primal perpetrators on the planet of the suffering. And so even as you're sitting editing, dear one, you can say, all right, look at all these themes. Look at this experience of humanity as it was at this stage in consciousness, naked and afraid, how that has permeated through so many storylines unconsciously. I'm going to pull all of the energy that was in all of that creative experience out of that and give it to my heart. Now your show may get cancelled, so we don't want to. Once you've
Don't harvest too much.
Right.
Let them have another idea before it's harvested all the way.
But we assure you, if you harvest that energy and you give it to your heart is going to create something even better, because it's going to include these new codes of creational experience that are vibrational signatures beyond the mind.
I wanted to ask, how can they adapt? So when she's saying that nobody's watching TV anymore, and we still want to do these storylines, any ideas to adapt to still reach people through different avenues, or like, the people on cable television now that seems to be like losing interest.
That is one where, again, we would say consciousness is probably more in control of that big picture. We would say to you, dear ones, the greatest thing you can do is to learn how to embrace change. Learn how to learn and learn how to embrace change, because and it's an interesting question, because a lot of your entertainment also reflects the expansion into multidimensionality. Thinking again about consciousness.
Is that like X-Men, Star Wars?
Well, in some ways, yes, because that starts to speak about this idea of human beings who have abilities and powers that lie outside of what you would call the traditional human potentiality. But we're also talking about how it's delivering. So when this idea, remember, this is very early in human history, that you could have any awareness of anything that lay outside of a walk from your house, a horse ride, and maybe for the most adventurous, a ship ride away. Most people's creative experience was what they experienced with their physical senses around them at that time. And part of why even media exists as you know it is because this is a time of shifting consciousness. And there had to be a way for you to have this creative relational experience with the unconscious programs that you've been running. That is what media entertainment is. Of course, people had books and things like that. That was part of it. But you've never in the history of humanity had access to so much of what quote unquote is going on out there in the real world, but also all of these explorations about what could or potentially did happen in the past.
Yeah.
So the themes of humanity are from the entire unconscious history of humanity. That's what we really want you to understand. Most of your entertainment and media that you experience outside of yourself is actually consciousness that is still in some way unconscious to you, meaning you have not fully integrated. It is part of what people call the shadow because it lies outside of your conscious veil, if that makes sense. Your conscious experiences tend to be more what you're experiencing like this right around you. But that which is delivered through the viewfinder generally refers to what is still unconscious to you, your past and also your potential, because your potential is also unconscious to you at this point. So the reason you're having media in the first place is so you could have a relationship with this entire unconscious realm of creation.
That's pretty amazing.
Because you have dissolved the veil so far that you could even have this experience. You've evolved as a creative collective to say, hey, well, what else can we do? Okay, we tilled the fields for this long, a little bit boring. All right, we did the marauding of villages for this long. We're kind of over that. What else can we have? Well, what if we totally change the game? And what if we start to introduce our multidimensionality? Now, as media entertainment in its original format was given to you, was very specifically created, singular point of view format. You had a very small number of maybe radio stations, TV stations, news magazines, a very small scope that was quote unquote controlled by a very small group of quote unquote people who chose to deliver these stories as being interesting. And what we would say to you is that that reflects the mind in its limited state. Your mind has been limited in the amount of vibrational frequency it allowed to come in to the brain to actually generate reality from. So now we move into the territory of the pineal gland. The pineal gland is the multidimensional processor of the brain. Everything you experience from movies to reality will still come through your brain. Thoughts, feelings, emotions, everything in your experience is generated by your brain. So the limited amount of frequency that could come in created a limited amount of experience. And in the past, it was a limited amount of TV or movies. Now, after a while, what did you start to get? You had 5 TV stations. Then you had cable, starting to reflect that there are more streams of consciousness coming into the brain to actually generate into reality. Now, but even cable TV was delivered in a linear time frame. So it was cable TV. It had lots of different shows, but it was still delivered in a linear. It's still 9 o'clock. This show plays.
Right.
Then you start to have the internet. You start to have Netflix. You start to have streaming. We are starting to transcend the illusion of time and space. Anywhere in the world, you can be watching anything at any time.
Right.
Now, even all of the shows that are on Netflix or these streaming things, they're still somewhat controlled by a group of creators. So it's still a limited framework. Then you start to have anyone can make anything at any time about anything that they want, and people are interested in it and they're watching it. You start to have podcasts, you start to have social media, and this is really, it's a reflection of the opening up of the multidimensional capability. Now, what that is putting you all into is this sort of angst about truth. And we don't mean to laugh at you, but we are laughing at the kerfuffle that you're all in right now. Because the real truth is that you're all infinite and powerful creators, and you're all able to access an intelligence that is infinitely powerful. But most of what is still being created is expressing these old imprints and programs of the mind. And that is why the greater power of this infinite presentation of creativity, consciousness, people expressing, is also troubling and challenging and disturbing at this time, because it's still representing a lot of the imprints from those old programs, survival consciousness, all the sort of gunk of the 3D creative experience. And again, this is why we say the more you come into your heart, the more you're going to start to bring forward creativity that can actually express this infinite potentiality in a way that doesn't seem to also create the harm, the disturbance, the fear,
The polarity.
and the polarity and the struggles that everybody is experiencing. So that is how so when we say to you, you're not really in control as a group of people consciously of what the format of media is, because it's always frequency first, manifestation second. And the frequency is much greater. We are going through an evolutionary shift in consciousness to move into a reality that is beyond the singular time-space reality, linearity of the mind, and into something new. But the conscious human being doesn't really know what is going on at all. So which is why we're sharing this information, to come into the heart and to trust this bigger process that is happening. Then if you do that, what will happen is you will get really into alignment with where your broader consciousness is most magnificently expressing in the open potentiality of that new reality that is coming. That's the best entertainment career advice we can give you, dear ones. Be what is coming.
Right.
Because what is coming will have more momentum than what has been, as people begin to reconcile. Even your political landscape, we are sharing, is that it is all about stirring up these old themes. You're not going to fix the themes through here, but you can harvest a lot of energy and, in a sense, uncreate the storylines, which is what you want, to uncreate those troubling storylines by pulling the energy out, giving it to your heart and surrendering and actually saying, I as an individual actually have no idea how to create a better reality. So I'm going to surrender and let my heart do it, because I know my heart's already operating outside of the system of suffering that my brain is creating. Yes.
Well, thank you. That was good.
Yeah.
That was my
Yes,
55
indeed.
minutes.
Yes, we have 55. Very good indeed, dear ones. We adore you so very much. Until we're meeting in this way or some other way, we love you very much. And for now, we'll say goodbye, dear ones. Goodbye.
So rude. I'm cutting the circle of light off.
We are in a linear time space.
Still. Circle light. We are still got to look at the clock.
They'll be back. I was keeping an eye on it too.
Okay. Well, that was interesting. So maybe once we process all of the Naked and Afraid and the violence and the war, we can start coming out with reality shows of remote viewing and
I mean, I think there's more of that
of,
too.
The potentialities of human beings.
I mean, I love a serial killer show myself, so it.
I know. Well, that's
makes
like
a lot of sense.
That's the interesting thing that I feel like that they brought up, though. It's like we are consuming a lot of
storylines,
negative storylines. Like if you think about like people like love a serial killer show, women are always watching like the first 48. Like, how does ingesting that negative energy not create more of the same? Even if you're bringing it into your heart, right? It's still a dark energy. Yeah. So how does it?
Because you do the purification with that. We do the Infinity 8. The Infinity 8. So when you're bringing, so they'll always share that all energy is energy, and it's just the imprint that the mind puts on it, whether it's good or bad.
Okay.
So when you're bringing it into the heart, and this is where people will get like, oh my God, well, yeah, like, why would I do that? Because it's creepy, isn't that going to make me more like that? And that is actually comes from the mind that wants to keep separation. And it's actually one of the tricky ways that the mind keeps us in the mind by staying in the judgment, because the judgment of good, bad is one of the games of the mind.
Okay.
It's not the heart. So when you're using the heart's like this gateway to this like infinite power center. It's so much vastly bigger than our little me and what you're accessing through the heart. It's like this intelligence behind all creation, basically.
Right.
That's going to purify it, So when you bring it in, we use the Infinity 8, where you run an Infinity 8 from the heart center up around through the thymus. And it's actually about understanding, if you go out of the mind's judgment and separation, that's like, that's bad and I'm good because I recognize it. You're coming back more into the unified field of the all consciousness, which is that we all actually come from this infinite ocean of energy where everything exists within that. And when you're connected to that, you actually have a lot more power to shift reality, because you're not doing it from the illusion of the little me. When we try and fix things from the little me, we have the power to fix things as much as lines up with our conscious and unconscious self. So for sure, we will fix things in our world within the power that our conscious and unconscious mind can fix it. But once a problem is bigger than that capacity, we really can't fix it. And this is what the act of surrender happens. So so that sort of, that consumption is, and it's a super interesting question, because I was in comedy and I had to sit around and listen to all that horrible dark stuff all the time, and it was just it used to make me sick. But then I learned how to purify the energy. So what happens is, after a while, is you start to lose that point of attraction to that realm, if that makes sense. Once you've done your piece of purification on that, and then somebody else is doing it, someone else is doing it. We share the tools of how to do that consciously, but a lot of the times people do have a sort of an unconscious process that could be going on that might be bringing them into sort of moving past it. Does that make sense? Like, you just kind of, after a while, you're like, okay, like, just kind of not that interested anymore.
Yeah.
Because something has been processed. Maybe it's even a point, like, say, for example, a serial killer show. One of the ways that we can come into union with energy can just be to have like a moment of empathy, where you hear like, okay, a serial killer was like beaten by their dads, and you can go, okay, you can kind of see why they were like a very damaged person and whatever. Just something like that could shift that illusion of separation. I'm just using that as a for example. And something releases in that moment. I remember when I would be much more of get into hot debates with people about various different issues, and something was really actually powerful would go, because I would be debating, but then I would start to listen, and then I would have these moments of like, oh wow, you care about this for this reason. It's not the storyline. It's something to do with something that happened in your family, or somebody died, and it means so much to you because of that. And I'm getting my truth pimples here. I can't fake it. When I would have those moments, then that whole storyline would lose a lot of charge for me.
Right.
And that was my personal journey with coming into union with a lot of things, and often like dating people who had like totally opposite points of view, and just having to like loving someone and having to kind of come into a relationship with with them in some way that transcended that. So we give the tools where you can actually just do it consciously, but I do believe that because the human collective is progressing, we are having these processes in different ways as we're going through. And I think we have to have some trust and faith and hope and belief in that as well. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll wrap up that episode. A little cuts on some of the.
Yeah.
I am curious. What do you think of the channeling after all this time?
I mean, it's.
Is that anything you would have expected it to be?
I mean, I feel like I saw you saw it progressing, right? And still like seeing what you do like on social media when you do post circle stuff. So it's like
so it's not too
right. Like I've seen it, but it just I mean, it feels like where that was always going, right?
Okay,
like, you know, you had to start somewhere with like the little personal questions that we all had, right? But like, I feel like it was clear even at the beginning that that's not what
it was
they were about, right?
Yeah,
you know, but it's like, how do you develop into those bigger themes and ideas?
Yeah.
Without getting through like the little things first, right? So like the evolution of it does feel like like of course that's where you are, right?
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
I was curious.
That's what they weren't here to be like. Why doesn't Johnny love me? You know, like
well, the theme is worthlessness.
Right.
Work on it.
Right. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's like, well, what's underneath that? I'm like, could you just take away my wrinkles? What's underneath that?
Right. Yeah. You know, it was. You could come with that question, but we're going to talk about something bigger.
Something way bigger than that.
More going on there.
I like the way they tied it in with Naked and Afraid, though. That was pretty cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, because we have been we have been channeling about some of that super primordial time of humanity consciousness in some of the other shows, and that's actually new content for me to channel. So you heard it first right here on Spread Your Third Eye.
Well, thank you.
Melinda.
I was going to say Melody. Okay, we got some editing. Thank you, Melinda, for being here.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
I did not even expect. I thought exactly what you did when, if you're watching that, you're actually creating more of it.
Right.
I had
like,
no idea you were
whole,
subconsciously actually transmuting that out.
There's a point of attraction. So if you want to watch it, if people are drawn to it, they have a point of attraction. They have some energy that's unintegrated that's resonating with it. So, yeah.
And if you guys want to come and interview the Circle of Light and come into the studio and meet all of us, then go ahead and click the link below and fill out the form, or go to my website, spreadyourthirdeye.com. You can find more of the Circle and Georgia at circleevolution.com, and more of her work on Naked and Afraid.
Naked and Afraid? What are you,
Black Lady Sketch Show,
American
Horror Stories. Yeah.
American Horror Stories. Yeah. Well, see,
speaking of,
you know, a lot of these are big archetypal themes. Yeah, so maybe it'll make you feel like a little lighter about working on such dark subject matter.
Sometimes you wonder, like, what am I putting out into
here?
the world?
It makes you feel a little lighter about being a couch potato and watching too much TV sometimes. You're actually doing work.
You're doing work.
So thank you.
That's hilarious. That's it. So thank you for being couch potato. We need you, planetary shift workers. Process that stuff.
That horror.
All right, guys. We'll see you next time. Love you all.
Bye.